Boom, and welcome back to another special episode of Simple Sideline 365. I just want to come with you tonight with some kind of updates, end of your weekend, Sunday, Seminoles snapshot, whatever the hell you want to call this. But some things happened this weekend: NFL draft, another portal entry, a lot of stuff going on. So I just want to get you a wrap up at the end of your weekend or your Monday morning, whichever it is. And thank you for coming by. Like, share the video. Appreciate your comments. As always, love discussing with you guys. So let's dive right into it. You may have missed it because you probably were doing better things with your weekend than I was. But we lost another defensive back on our football club here. Travis J entered the portal. Now you may say to yourself, I haven't seen Travis J on the field in a couple of years. You are right. It feels like Travis J hasn't been a major part of this program for what seems like a while. Hasn't been a major contributor, I should say. It doesn't feel like for a while. You could say, he really didn't live up to his billing for what we wanted him to be with this, whether it was injuries, just a mixture of different things. That wasn't a bad guy, but wasn't from what I know, a bad cultural fit or anything like that. It just didn't work out, right? Kind of same thing with Damari Tate. Highly thought of player, coveted player, just didn't work out. He enters the portal. Travis J now enters the portal as I think this is probably the least unexpected player to enter this past week in terms of when you're talking about Mycah Pittman, Omarion Cooper, all those guys. But now you've lost your third defensive back into the portal as of now, and it's now there's a little bit of a warning or a you're starting to get a little concerned. If your coach Mike and staff are starting to go, okay, well, we lost one, then we lost two, okay, now we lost three. Okay, I would be reach out to my staff and say, what is our plans here, guys? How confident do we feel about our backup plans on our defensive depth chart? Because once again, you're not losing starters necessarily outside of maybe Coop, who was a rotational starter on that defensive backfield, but you're losing key depth. And we know in football, it just takes one bad play, one rolled ankle, whatever it may be, and you're down to it's next man up. And another guy has to step up, and you don't want that to be a true freshman, right? Because or another backup transfer that you just got in who's just learning the system, right? And so that's where I'm kind of looking at a depth chart here, and things are getting very, very light. You take off Travis J's name here, so you take his name off here. And what are you left with, right? In terms of strong safety or free safety, you got Akeem Dent, who's, I don't think he's totally lived up to his billing, and he's a redshirt senior, right? This is his last year. We know what we have in Akeem Dent, right? He's solid, but he's a good, not great player at this point, right? But you know what you have in him. He's gotten better, but he is good, but not great player. Shaheem Brown showed a lot of flashes as a young player. A lot of flashes as a young player. So this will give him at least more playing time on the field, but he's still learning, right? He's still developing. So it leaves you with Akeem Dent, and Shaheem. And then you have KJ Kirkland coming in as a freshman. You got Conrad Hussey coming in as a freshman. And you guys got like Zaria Thomas, true sophomore, and Renardo Green, redshirt senior. Now, you don't want to throw those guys to this safety position, not necessarily, but I am very concerned now about where we are depth-wise, right? Like I said, you don't know how these injuries are going to roll, and losing Coop was probably your biggest hit this week out of anybody. Just that guy, that how much experience he had in that defensive backfield. And I'm not saying he was a star and all those things, but he had experience and he could make plays for you. Travis J isn't that, but at least you had a body there. You don't have any backup bodies anymore, right? You basically have to wrap Akeem Dent and Sheen Brown and bubble wrap going forward, right? You should take away their electric scooters, rollerblades, whatever it is. They should have bodyguards around them at all times, because if they suffer any injury before the LSU game, you're in trouble. We're in big trouble because we have no more depth available to us. The good thing is, though, is that we have scholarships available to us, right? I think Florida State's still at 80 scholarships, so that means we have 5 available, to be at that 85 limit, because they basically culled a lot of the lineup this past couple of weeks around, cutting a lot of the back slots, letting them move on to other places. So you have 5 spots available. And the good thing is there's a lot of defensive backs available in the portal. Now, the official undergraduate portal closes Sunday night. And by the time you may watch this, it may already be closed. But for graduate transfers, it's always open, right? They can enter, they can come and go as they want to. And that brings us to our next discussion and rolling into it is Florida State seems to be in the market, in the running for a kid by the name of Jaylen Key out of UAB. Jaylen K, sorry, or Key or K. Jaylen K out of UAB. Now, this is a kid who had his stock ride. He's in his senior year. I think he's a 6-year senior. Saw his stock rise last year at UAB, right? I mean, UAB was a program that basically was dead almost 3 or 4 years ago, right? The funding, they didn't, and the program's kind of reemerged, which is great to see. You love to see that. But this is a guy himself who 2 years ago didn't look like he had the potential to play at the ACC level, and then last year the kid broke out. Let me share a little bit. You can see some of his numbers here. The last couple of years, he really didn't do much of anything. Freshman, redshirt sophomore year, only played in 7 games with 1 start. Junior year, didn't do much of anything, appeared in 10 games, 6 tackles, 1 pass breakup. But then last year, he was an all-honorable, all-conference USA player. 60 tackles, third on the team in tackles, 3 interceptions, 4 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles. He had 12 tackles at LSU, so one of his biggest games was against someone who's on FSU schedule. You'd love to see that. So he's emerging at the right time, right? He's only had 1 big year, but he's gotten better season after season. He's emerging as a playmaker late in his career, which is what you'd like to see. And he's got that veteran experience now at this level. He's mature. He's maturing at the right time, and he's developing. And in big games, he played the best, it seems like, against a team like LSU, who you'll play week 1. The other thing that people point out is, look where he's from, right? He played at Goodby, hometown, Tallahassee, Florida. You have that connection, right? Now, Florida State's lost some battles in recruiting in their backyard, which I think they'll get better at, but you have a great connection here. Does this kid want to come back in his final year as a redshirt senior and play in his hometown, potentially, right? That's a great recruiting tag, right? Come home, ball out, play for potentially an ACC championship. That's our aspiration this year. We got everybody back. Come play for an ACC championship in your hometown and leave a legacy. That's how I would effing pitch that shit. Be a hometown hero. Come home. Do it right. Go out right. Because we can't promise you that you're going to go to the NFL level because you don't have necessarily the stats to show that. But we can give you an opportunity now to do that in your hometown. Because look at the depth chart in front of you. There's not that many solidified playmakers in front of you. And that's not a knock on Shaheem. That's not a knock on Akeem. But you're going to have the opportunity to get starting playing time just because the depth chart is so light right now, right? And you balled out last year. And we're going to be playing in big games. And the best players are going to play in those big games. That's what I would be selling to him. And so the good news for Florida State is that he did drop his top 6. So as a graduate transfer, he's in no rush. He can pick the right school for him. And what he said in his statement is that he wants to go to a place that can prepare him for the next level. My concern with that is that you just had Jamie Robinson in a similar position, transferred, wanted to prepare, develop, which he did. He balled out, but he just won the 5th round. Now, could Florida State be negatively recruited against and say, hey, Jaylen, we're Alabama, right? We develop 1st and 2nd rounders routinely, especially defensive backs. Florida State, their guy just won the 5th round, right? And he was an all ACC guy. He won the 5th round. Let us develop you the right way. Same with Ohio State. I think that's the only thing that maybe you could see negative recruiting on, right? Right or wrong. Florida State's also produced great defensive backs. We all know that. Derwin James, Jalen Ramsey, the list goes on. So, but that's the only thing, there's always going to be these sideways negative recruiting games that are played. I think Florida State has the edge in terms of the hometown edge, playing big games. But there could be some negative recruiting in terms of the NFL draft numbers of recent late, right? I think it's stupid, but I think it could happen. But you're in the mix. That's what you care about. You're in the mix for a top playmaker to solidify, to get that depth back on track. So it'll be interesting. I don't think Oregon, Ole Miss, I think it's down to probably Florida State, Alabama, and Ohio State, right? And that's how it should be. You're in the race, which is good to see. So this is a name to keep track of. I've already posted a couple of guys. There's a kid from Auburn. There's another kid from Alabama that's transferring out that you could get you some depth. But in terms of game experience, this is one of the top guys that's available. I think another guy just dropped in the portal, which is interesting too. Had some game time depth. But this is a guy Florida State needs to land. They need to land this guy. And I think it actually helps that Travis Jay left because probably wasn't going to be a top contributor, but you can now sell even more playing time to a kid like Jaylen Key. So something to track for sure. Something to track for sure. And if that breaks, we'll be sure to break that down. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and let me know in the chat, do you think DB depth chart is a concern to you? Do you look at the depth chart and do you see this as a concern in front of you? Do you trust that Shaheem, Akeem, Conrad, those guys can pick up the slack? Do we not need to waste a scholarship on it? Should we focus our scholarships in other places? Receiver, linebacker, defensive tackle, other places. Me personally, I get one defensive back at minimum. But what do you think? What do you think there? Sticking on the portal and portal news, stuff like that, quickly transition over to the basketball program because I know we hate talking about that. People hate talking about that. But Coach Ham finally got a win in the portal. So you got to give him a clap for that. He landed Primo Spears, probably one of the bigger names still available in the basketball transfer portal. This is a kid, if you don't know, he's out of Georgetown. Formerly, he was at Duquesne. Kind of an under-the-radar recruit. Wasn't really highly rated when he went to Duquesne in the A10. But this is a guy that can ball. This is definitely a kid that can ball. 16 points per game last year. He's a certified playmaker. He's progressed every season. He's still got 2 years of eligibility. He's potentially NBA caliber in my viewpoint. Once again, I'm an alumni of George Mason, so A10 is what I watch a lot of the time. So this guy can play. This guy's a big-time player. This is a big-time get for Florida State. And obviously, why did they get him over Kansas and big-time programs? Because they can sell freaking playing time. How many people have they seen leave this year? That's what they're selling right now. That's what they can sell. Florida State's lost Naheem McLeod, Jeremiah Benbury. They've lost Matthew Cleveland, Caleb Mills. Florida State has so much playing time to sell, and they need playmakers. Florida State's not going to be very good next year. That is my prediction. They're going to be around a 9 to 12 win team next year, just because of everyone they've lost this year. So if you haven't kept track, this is what it looks like. This is the players they've lost. They've lost one of their top freshmen last year. They've lost another younger player, McLeod. They lost Matthew Cleveland, their top playmaker from last year. Going to be a draft guy. Caleb Mills, they've lost 2 of their top 3 leading scorers to big time programs. This team needs playmakers, and Primo Spears is not going to be able to replace that production. That's why you win a battle like that, because like Colorado in football, when you have playing time up for grabs and you're in a big time conference for basketball, you could sell that to Primo Spears and say, hey, you need a new change of scenery. You want to be a leader on this team. Here you go, right? Georgetown's going through a new coach, so that's probably why he wanted to get out. This guy's gone through 3 programs in 3 years. He just may not like the new coaching staff. He wants to go to Coach Ham, who's been around for a while. Some stability, even though the program's not been well run the last 3 years. But Florida State lands a big guy, so I'll give kudos where kudos is due. Coach Ham gets Primo Spears. It's a good win on the trail. The last thing I want to talk about is the NFL draft. Jammie goes 5th round. I think that was a little bit lower than most people expected, probably especially in FSU media. I love Jammie. I loved him as a Florida State football player. I think he did have his downsides as a pro player. He didn't athletically dominate at the combine in terms of measurements and athletic ability, but he's a scheme player, and that's what he is. And I think FSU media may have propped him up to be more of a 1st or 2nd round player, But I think going to the Panthers in their rebuild mode, you've seen what they've done with Brian Burns and the way they utilize him and the way that he's starting to emerge as a player now, which is great to see. I think this is a good situation for him. he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. If you've heard the call with the coaches that they put on Twitter, the guy's a worker. He's tough nosed, hard worker. I think it's going to be a good situation for him. I think he went to the right team that's going to allow him to compete for a spot. And he's not going to be buried on the depth chart. He's going to have the opportunity to go in, compete, and look for early playing time within his first couple of years there. So I think it's a great spot for him. Now, in terms of three other Florida, no one else got drafted for Florida State. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, his team got 10 wins. You had their top players in terms of draft eligible, like Jared Verse, come back. A couple of other guys may have been able to get drafted. You saw guys like Robert Cooper didn't get drafted. I don't think that's a surprise. Robert Cooper just wasn't a standout player on defensive line in my eyes. Others may agree, but I just don't think he's a starting caliber defensive player. But you saw guys like Fabian Lovett, who, once again, we can just discuss that later, whether he's a draft eligible guy. He came back. Jared Verse came back. You got other guys who will be eligible next year who may be able to be picked up. But you saw three guys, Florida State guys, get undrafted free agents, which I think gives them better opportunities to make a team. Cam McDonald went to the Packers, which is a cool pickup for him. They signed like 3 tight ends for Jordan Love and their rebuild there after Aaron Rodgers. You also saw, what's his name? You saw, what's his name? Sorry, I'm blanking on it. But yeah, so you had 3 undrafted free agents, Florida State players get picked up. Cam McDonald, I remember because I saw him tweeting about being a cheesehead and stuff like that, which I thought was cool. But yeah, the other guys, I'm blanking on. I don't know why. I can't remember the other guys that. But other than that, yeah, Robert Cooper, I think he got picked up. I'm just trying to remember where he got picked up for, but. Outside of that, I don't think it's surprising to me that none of the other guys got picked up. Is it surprising to you that no one else got picked up or got drafted? Is it surprising to you that the Trench Monster didn't get drafted? Is it surprising to you that like a special teams player like Wyatt Rector or someone like that didn't get drafted? Right? What of those undrafted free agents are you surprised didn't? It was cool to see a guy like James Blackman, who's playing at Arkansas State, who had some production there. He got picked up by the Dolphins. That was another cool story. So it was fun to see a guy like James Blackman, who had 4 offensive coordinators in 3 years at Florida State, transferred out under Mike Norvell, that he got picked up as an undrafted free agent for the Dolphins. So I thought that was pretty cool to see that. But yeah, anything that surprised you? Also, I saw Jaden Woodby got picked up as well. Which is interesting to see. He played 2 years at Boston College. I didn't think he was a draftable player, but these guys, I think it's sometimes better that they go off and get to compete in the mini camps without the NFL, the starting players there, so they get 2 or 3 weeks to be able to play their game, and before the trench starters come in, and then they get to show what they have. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And if it does, then great for them. Oh, Ontario Wilson, that's who I was thinking about. Pokey. He got signed by the Chargers. I think of any of those guys, of like Trench Monster, Pokey, Cam McDonald, Wyatt Rector, Justin. Justin's hurt. Of any of those guys, Jarquez Mclendon, Dylan Gibbons, stuff like that. I think if any of those undrafted free agents, I think Pokey has the most potential to have an NFL career. He's not going to be a starting. He's not going to be a 1, 2, or 3 receiver. But I think he can make it as like the 4th receiver on a team and just every so often pop off, or someone gets injured, he pops in as number 3 receiver on the team, just because he didn't really get his time to shine at Florida State, or like he didn't emerge as a number 1 receiver. But the guy has amazing hands. He's got athletic ability. He has speed. He has all the tools to be a really great player. He just, he never fully emerged at Florida State. So I think him being picked up by the Chargers, where you've seen kind of under the radar receivers emerge there, and you put them with a great quarterback in that system that they have there, I think Pokey going to the Chargers is a really good pickup. But yeah, I think that's great for him. I'll be looking out for him there. And then Robert Cooper, like I said, he got signed by the Seahawks, so that's an interesting signing there. We'll see that they're known for their defense. Pete Carroll knows what he's doing there, so it's interesting. And Cooper was the guy that didn't get to compete at the pro day or combine because of his shoulder surgery. So that probably hurt him. That definitely hurt him in terms of like draft stock ability. But Seahawks, once again, they find a way to make their defense work and give under the radar guys opportunities. So that's probably a good landing spot for him as well as an undrafted free agent. Now, Dylan Gibbons, Wyatt Rector, Justin, Leonard Warner, Mike Russus, those guys not signed in yet as far as I know. We'll see if their time comes or not. But I'm excited for the guys that did get signed. But once again, I really do think Pokey could have the most potential of any of those guys who got signed, outside Jamie Robinson, of course. So that's going to do it for tonight. Some big news with Primo Spears signing. Big news with Jaylen Key, Florida State being in his top 6. That's a guy that Florida State needs to sign. But if you hear of anything else, or if you disagree that Florida State doesn't need to add another DB, they need to use those scholarships elsewhere, or anything else that we discussed tonight, let me know. Like the video, share it. We'll be back with some new breaking news, hopefully not breaking news next week, but we'll see. And it was great seeing y'all. Take care, and have a great next week. Take care.